Diamond channel, welcome. Right, this video has been taken from a recent full instructional guide I made. I was making a pear-shaped stone ring and I wanted to cut out the section from that full guide where I was forming the pear shape by hand to match the stone perfectly, because it was really in-depth tutorial. I think it was quite good, and I wanted to cut it out and put it on YouTube on the channel as normal for everyone to see, because quite a while ago now I did a video on pear-shaped collet and people were commenting they wished I'd been talking like I normally do, because I wasn't talking throughout that video, so there's a lot of information that was sort of missing more than normal. So yeah, this video today should remedy that, and yeah, I hope it fills in all the gaps and answers any questions people had about doing a pear shape. It is quite tricky, it's quite a difficult thing to do, so you've got to work really carefully and like slowly and patiently to get it done well. So yeah, this video is about that, and I'll get into it after I said thank you to a new patron I got literally this morning, Miguel Angel Benito. Thank you very much, Miguel. Yeah, if you want to become a patron, you get a shout out on the next upload after you join. You get access to new YouTube videos 2 weeks before they go public on YouTube, and you get access to all the full instructional guides if you become a classic or an official patron. And official patrons is the top tier. They get exclusive content and ability to message me, and I'll help you out with your like personal endeavors making jewelry if I can. Like, I'm happy to share my expertise if I can help. I always will. So alright, let's get into the video. So yeah, this is an old video. It's from a full instructional guide. If you want to get access to the full video, you need to become a patron. There's a link in the description to do that, and yeah, hope you do. If not, welcome to just join me again for free on the next upload. So yeah, pear shapes, you've got to study them because they do differ quite a lot. Sometimes they're long and narrow, sometimes, I think more usually, they're a bit more like this. They're more wide than they are long. So when I look at them, so you've got to study them around the outside. Sometimes they're a bit more straight from the point down to there. This one's quite rounded, so I'm noticing there's a curve all the way up to the top. So I start from the point, so I curve my metal around like that. You might be tempted just to do a big U shape and then try and close it up at the top. I don't like doing that because you sort of lose control. You've got two bits of metal folded up to a V, and then you've got to start fiddling about with pliers, and there's not much space from one side to the other. I think you're better off starting off from the point. So I'm looking at that curve, paying attention to that. So I'm gonna, first little move I'm gonna do with the wire is replicate this gentle curve. Alright, so let's get into it finally. What I find very helpful is just a bit of blue tack, some sort of plasticine. You can just stick to the stone, and then you can get your fingers off the stone and look at it easily and move it around and stuff. So like I said, thinking about that curve first of all. So normal size, half round pliers. Start from the very end. By the way, this metal is slightly rectangular. I've got the more deep side is the side of the bezel. So I'm going to start just by putting a gentle curve. I'll go down it quite far because that end bit where it's been milled through the mills, that end bit's never very nice anyway, so that's going to be chopped off. So I'm sort of starting down a few mil. So put a gentle curve on that, and then compare it to my stone. I'll just pick it up, put it over the top. Okay, need to go a little bit more. It's just a lot of checking. I'd say check it often, but when you adjust it, don't adjust it much at all. It's really sort of minor little tweaks. My blue tack is on top of the stone. I hooked it over like that so I can really look down, straight down on it without my fingers getting in the way. And remember I said I was going to cut off the end bit of that bit of silver, so I'm sort of starting around there, and then I'm just looking at that little section, really, just that top quarter or fifth, whatever you want to call it. I just try to line it up and just checking the curvature. So mine, let me actually look at it. Yeah, a very short distance there to there is kind of correct. That's what I mean about taking really minimal tweaks. Yeah, like there to there, I've got like 3 mil, maybe 4 mil down, and then this seems to curve a bit too much. So I need to just straighten out a section of it. And then it'll be down here, and then we'll start to really curve it to go around the bottom of the stone. So anyway, I'm finding all this out by simply just putting the stone over the top and looking at it, and studying it. So you got to check it all the time with your stone, but when you do make a little tweak, it's really minor. Okay, a couple of minutes extra fiddling. I've got a bit more of it matching the outside. What I'm aiming to do, yeah, is just match that edge to the edge of the stone. And that finished is going to be perhaps a little bit big, but we'll put plier marks all over it. So I'm going to file around the outside anyway. There's an opportunity to file an angle on it as well if you're starting with a sort of thick enough bit of metal. But anyway, yeah, so I'm planning on making it pretty much exactly the same as the outside of the stone and then filing it back a little bit. A lot of checking, tweaking, and just working patiently, slowly, skillfully, gently, and then you should. Well, I'll show you. I'll turn it up and then we'll get to the last bit and I'll show you what I do. Okay, so curved it a bit more, got like a nice little U shape going on, so that stone almost sits in there now, so it sort of feels like it's getting easier as you get closer to completing it. But what I do is, before I don't actually keep going and fold it up, because I need to replicate that, or make symmetrical that curve there. So I need space to do that with my pliers, which I've lost over here. So I do that now while it's still open. I can get my pliers in there. I will try and get that gentle curve going, and then I'll be back to this corner and should be able to close it up and end up with something kind of correct. So checking it on there again. Yeah, from here it needs to come up this way, so it's sort of making sense. So definitely this is how I'll close it up, from there, and then around here should be that curve. Yeah, nowhere near curved enough. But anyway, yeah, the trick is do that end bit while you've got space, because if they're closed up you can't get your pliers in there. You'll end up having to open it up again, and then you're working in a way is what I call going backwards and forwards. So you're sort of doing it, going too far, and then having to take a step back to be able to do what you're trying to do next. So yeah, get this last curve, get it going before you close it up. So just one more thing I've thought of to mention. Don't make it the way I've made it. Get to this stage and then think, oh, I'll just close it up and then just squeeze it up, because I haven't made it. That won't work. It's that. So the bottom of mine isn't directly in the middle there. It's actually across over here. See what I mean? If I put that in position to how I've been making it, which I can't do, the actual centre is like over here somewhere. So I've still got to bear that in mind. I can't just close it up now. It won't work. So the curve, you can see I've matched that curve there, that side. What I'm about to do is tweak it, kind of scissor it slightly out of position, like top and bottom, so they can overlap. I'm not actually closing that side against that. I want them to overlap a little bit. So it's good. I've got that spare bit on the end I wasn't working to. That's gonna go over or under that side, and then hopefully the shape is good. And then we'll cut through it, basically cut through it at a size that you know is too big, and then you adjust it down until it fits the stone. Let me know if I give you too much information in these videos. It's just like every time I change a technique or a tool, there's always something to say about it. When you're scissoring it, I would recommend not holding it from the end, because when you twist it, like the whole bottom section can get distorted. I would hold it more towards the bottom, then twist it from, like I was talking about where the center of the stone is over here a little bit. I'm going to put my pliers either side of that and just twist it. There you go, just like that. And it's only distorted between there and there. The rest of it is still flat as it was. And I'll keep that in mind. When I close it up, I'll try and get the pliers in kind of the same position and then close it back up. And I've affected that as little as possible. Let's try and close it up and end up with a nice shape. You can hold things, like I'm using my fingers a lot with this one, but sometimes you want to hold it just so, and then I need to push it right there, and then maybe my thumb is going to be too much of a blob against it. It's going to push too much of the top end in. Sometimes you need to be more accurate about where you're pushing it. So don't be afraid of just holding it and then pushing it against your peg, because you need to push it against something hard. And then stop and have a general look at it as well. Stone check time. It's quite handy having this extra length. I can pull it rather than always push down on it. So rather than holding them there, I'm bringing them up a little bit now. So I saw I need to bend it from here. So I've got this shape now, yeah, and like I said before, I want to cut it when I know it's still too big. So you can see the ends, looks like that, innit? You can see the ends still need to close up a little bit more. It needs to, from the sides, it needs to fold in a little bit more. But what I'm going to do is going to cut through it now, and then I will cut it down and file it down and adjust them as I go, so I can close it up at just the right angle or just the right length. That's for actually cutting through it. I'm not just going to like do that and then put my saw blade through and then just hack through it like that. That can go wrong on you quite quickly, because there's quite a distance and they're not even touching. Like your saw blade can be a bit like that, and you can literally ruin it and have to start again. If you cut it off at the wrong angle and it's too short, you can't file it back flat. Yeah, you can ruin it. So you need to do this really carefully. And then also, I'm talking about doing it this way because I would only ever have the join vertical. I did see on another jewellery YouTube channel that they just cut it off in line with that. I think it's a horrible idea, and you end up with a big solder join down the side. That's not that nice, so I definitely make the extra effort to get it vertical and nice and tight and clean and straight. So this is, you might feel like you've turned it up and you're finishing it, just quickly cut it off. You actually need to work really carefully at this stage, cutting it. When I've had bad experiences making jewellery, or over the years learning to make jewellery, it's always when I feel like I've finished, and then you think, oh, just do that, just cut that off, or just bend that. That's when you make a mistake. It's the exact moment where you relax and think you can just do something easily. That's when you make a mistake. So even just cutting it off sounds like a finishing thing that you can do easily, but actually you gotta almost be more careful than what you've just been trying to get that the perfect shape. So to help me not make a mistake, I will scratch a little line, a little vertical line. I look at it, hold it nice and straight, literally scratch a little line vertically, and do the same the other side. And I will cut one and then the other. I won't just try and cut through both at the same time. It's important as well, I think. It's got to be quite sure it's a bit too big, because then you can start cutting it and filing it and closing it up. That's the trick to getting it finished the correct size and shape. I think I'm going to cut through it so it will be flat. Like it's scissored, yeah, so when it's gone back straight, it will be going to a point. I think I'll need to cut the ends open like a little V and then close them up flat again, and then that should be sort of the right size. Anyway, so I'm just literally carefully cutting down that line I just scratched on there. Natural beeswax, love this stuff. As a guide to help you line your saw blade up, you can actually look at your saw blade going down the middle of it. You see the gap there? Let's see if I can put this on. You can line it up and just make sure it's not one side or the other. You're actually keeping it in that line. Just try and keep it in that position, and then cut straight down, obviously. Even if you go off a little bit, as long as you're starting and it's going to be too long, it's not a huge problem, I guess, because we're going to be cutting it and filing it. But like I always say, it's always good to practice working accurately. Even if you don't need to be, you are practicing working accurately for when you do need to be accurate. When you get to the last bit, I'll be careful not to just chop it off and then put a saw cut on the other side. You could get unlucky with that. Come on. There we go. Playing it very safe there, picking it off. So that's one side done. Next side, same again. Cut that off. Well, literally the same, just line it up. Keep it in line by checking it across the middle of the gap, and then chop it off. You can see the bit I picked off, I didn't actually cut all the way through it. on both sides. So it's a bit rough looking, look. It's not too bad looking at the straights of it. So I was about to just open it up and then scissor it back straight and then close it again. And then I thought, shall I paper disc it or do this and that? Because I have to sort of think about what I would normally do, and then is there a more simple way to explain it to you on camera? I thought the best way, rather than trying to paper disc it now or do anything clever with the saw blade while it's this stage, I will literally just pull it open, close it, and try and get it sitting back close again, and even with these little bumps on there, and then check it with a stone, and then we'll cut through it. So I think it's a slightly safer way to proceed rather than adjusting it now when we don't really know how to adjust it. So again, 2 pairs of parallels, like I say in previous videos, I always rely on having 2 pairs of parallels. I'm just going to open it up carefully, scissor it back, and then try and get them touching. Right, I think if I cut through that, I might be able to close it up a bit nicer, and then we'll check the stone. So it is doing what I thought it was going to do, just basically the bottom half's all right, but the top half is too long because of the way, well, it's literally how we marked it out and cut it. So I was talking about cutting out a little V. What I mean is when I get these lined up nicely, this side doesn't look as bad, but one side's slightly longer than the other. I'm going to cut through it now with a saw blade, get them lining up nicely, nice and symmetrical, and they'll be too long. So I'm thinking about cutting, it's not going to be much, but it'll be a slight V. Rather than cutting straight down all the time, we'll cut a little V out and then try and get it to close up again. And then it should be something like what that stone wants. It's not a huge amount, so still working very carefully, making minute adjustments. I'll just put a thicker saw blade in, and I think it's going to be easier to cut it from the inside going up. Here we go, right. Oh, looking for my pliers that aren't here, these crappy ones. Try and fold that side down. Easier said than done. Yeah, that side is literally longer, so I need to shorten that one side. I'm going to paper disc it. Right, now if I can close that up, it should fit the stone a bit nicer, but still be a bit long. That's what I'm expecting. Okay, I'm not as skillful doing this as I was when I used to practice them. I do feel like I need to practice this. Okay, cool. Right, let me show you what that is. So it is, I say I need practice. Everything is going exactly as I expect. So the stone sits in there a bit nicer. I can see it around the edge. That's going to go when I get it the correct length. But yeah, it's too long there and there, sticks out. And I'm careful to be checking a stone on the same side every time, not swapping it around. So I know that's where I started from. I just recognise it, but yeah, you could put a little mark on it, even with the marker pen or something inside, where you're not going to rub it off, to help you out find it. But anyway, so just going to shorten these a bit more and close it up. It needs to not just close up, it needs to kind of do this a little bit as well. You know what, I just thought I'm going to recommend doing this again. I'm actually going to recommend drawing a little line on it. So when you start cutting back, you don't actually really know without all you've got for reference of how much you've cut is what you remember how long it was, or certain angles and stuff. So it's nice to actually have a line to cut back to. Sometimes I do it, I'm not even taking a measurement, I'm just using the thickness of the thin line, and then you can sort of see the metal you're taking away easier. So I'm going to do that here. It's not parallel, it's just slightly out, a slight V. So not a huge amount. I'm going to do it again with my paper disc. Really need to draw a line on the other side. So when you do one side then the other, you turn it over, don't you? Okay, if I can close that up. Might be getting there. It's shortened up quite nicely. Still a bit long, but perfect. I'm going to put my saw blade through it a few times, get that closed right up, and then we should be approaching what I need it to be. I made a gap. Close it up. This bit of metal could do with annealing, to be honest. It's really hard. It's probably making it more difficult for myself. It's quite springy. I literally didn't anneal it since I started. Alright, closing it back up. Put the saw blade through. Parallel pliers. It through. If I close this up, it should be very close to what I want it to be. Let's have a look. Before I do any edits on the camera, let me show you. Oh, come on. Come on. I'm going to have to edit this out. It's going wrong. It's nice if I can show you a lot of progress without any edits, and then you can sort of be trustworthy. What you saw me do did just happen. Because obviously as soon as you edit, it can literally be an hour, 2 hours of work I did. That's still too long. Alright, let me show you. So I've still got a bit of length sticking out the top, so I need to do a tiny little bit more. I'm just going to cut through it, try and squash it, not just together, but try and open it up so it has to sort of come like this. So that takes length out of it and closes it up to an angle more suited to the end of the stone. Look. Ta-da, that's what we did. I cut through it, ended up cutting through it twice more with a thick saw blade, and then I squashed it together, not from the side, but sort of from the end, so that shortened it a little bit more. And then I cut through it once more with a thinner saw blade, and it's about right now. It sort of matches the shape of the stone, and I can just see a hairline around the outside. But like I said before, I was planning on getting that all filed up anyway, because it's all plier marks and stuff around the outside. So yeah, good to continue.